charged for wire fraud, money laundering, and falsifying government documents. But of course, that was not allowed to be talked about in your son's trial. The fact that the agents who were leads in investigating him were involved in all of these different things, money laundering, falsifying government documents. Certainly that would have had an effect in the trial, I believe.
I think it would have completely changed the trial. And I want to put a shout out to Alex, because when I talked to him last July, he said, watch for law enforcement corruption in this case.
Yes.
And he turned out to be exactly right.
Yes.
These guys, because they had an informant, they arrested an informant who gave them what Kashmir Hill of Fusion, she said it's like the digital keys to the kingdom. They had high-level access to administrative functions on Silk Road. They had the ability to change the site. They had access to administrator platforms, administrator passwords, the ability to change PIN numbers, commandeer accounts. So when it comes down to evidence, they had the means to manipulate logs, chats, private messages, keys, posts, account information. And of course, they would also have a motive to do that, to direct attention away from their own activities towards perhaps other people.
It's been alleged that the Secret Service agent, Sean Bridges, after getting the keys to the kingdom from this person, he was able to transfer the Bitcoins to himself, 800,000. He didn't come back to the meeting the next day. So he goes to a meeting, they show him how you could do this sort of thing. He disappears the next day, and so does the money, so do the Bitcoins. And as you're pointing out, if they can steal the money, they would certainly have motivation to change other things to pass guilt on to someone else.
Sure. So at this point, how do you separate fact from fiction? You know, how do we know if there was tampering or fabrication? Are there more corrupt agents? There's a lot of information that's still redacted. The government's not usually very forthcoming with information. Our attorneys just found some new things out last week. So I think this is a tip of an iceberg. I think it very well could be. And I think it would have definitely had an impact on the trial. The reason was we have to seal it because it will hurt the investigation if it comes out. So our attorney said, well, okay, let's just delay the trial. You're wrapping it up in the next couple months, and then we'll have the trial.
Exactly.
And they said, yeah. And they said, no, because the people have a right to a speedy trial. I'm like, oh,
you have a right to an honest trial, actually, I think, is a just trial. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, use one right to preclude your due process rights. I mean.
Well, I think it's interesting when the Judge Forrest, issued this sealed decision. She said that any information that be disclosed about the agents, the government agents' alleged crimes would, listen to this, quote, result in significant prejudice to the integrity of the investigation. Do you think?
Right.
You think people might question the integrity of the investigation when these guys are stealing millions of dollars as they're investigating the crime? To me, that would be a slam dunk. Of course, if I was a juror, I wouldn't do anything to anyone who had a website that was engaged in commerce and they're not actually doing any selling. I also wouldn't send anybody to jail for life because there was drugs involved and drug selling, because I don't believe in the war on drugs. I think the prohibition has done nothing to stop drug use. All it has done is corrupt law enforcement, as we see in this particular case, and destroy our rights. I think this exactly is what's happening here, is a microcosm of what we see in the war on drugs. Corruption of the government, destruction of our rights, and agents who basically can run wild.
Well, it's a complete, I mean, it hasn't stopped anyone from using drugs.
No.
But they keep doing it because it expands government power, as far as I can see. I mean, that's the result of it.
Yes.
And makes a lot of money. And, you know, I go to the prison because I visit Ross, and I see the effect of this war on drugs on families. And it's horrible. It's tragic. And these are nonviolent people, you know, who are serving decades with these draconian sentences. And it's really a national disgrace. It's terrible.
You know, and you point out nonviolent and the length of the sentences that he could possibly get a lifetime sentence. I just earlier in the broadcast, I covered a shooting where it followed a high-speed chase, and one of the officers, after all the shooting was finished, after they'd shot at the car about 150 times, one of the officers jumped on the top of the car and shot the two unarmed occupants of the car 11 times in a fit of rage. Now, he's having charges brought against him, which we typically don't see in these police shootings, but the worst he could get would be 25 years. Yet your son, who did nothing to harm anyone, could go to jail for life if this stands. It's just an amazing injustice that we see in the war on drugs, and certainly the kind of roughshod practices that we see everywhere in the Justice Department, not just about this particular case, not just about war on drugs. We saw it in the Barrett Brown trial. We see it in every one of the trials if we look closely, how they rig the system.
I'm seeing it up close and personal, and I'm appalled.
Well, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about what's happening to your son. We'll keep us posted as to what happens. We'll be watching this very carefully to see if the crimes of these agents should call into question the integrity of the investigation. I think it very much should. Well, we're going to continue to watch to see what happens, because it doesn't just affect your son's life and your family's life. It affects all of us and these rights that are on the line. Now, tell people how they can follow this, how they can contribute to his defense.
Well, please go to freeross.org. We are greatly in debt from the trial, which was very expensive, and now we need to fund the appeal to push back on these precedents that have been set, and we were hoping to overturn. So, and also any other help, advice, networking, but certainly donations to the legal fund would be great. It's a huge Goliath of a foe we have here, and it's just us. And so please help us.
Absolutely. Again, you have my sympathy. I think this is a great injustice, not only to you, but to America, that we can have this kind of a corrupt system, a kind of corrupt law enforcement that is quite evident in this case. Thank you so much for joining us, Lynn Ulbricht.
Thank you, David.
Well, that's it for tonight's news. If you're not a subscriber to our YouTube channel, please subscribe there. Of course, if you want to get the information even more quickly every night as it occurs, please support us and subscribe to Prison Planet TV. Your subscription funds the operation, and of course, it can be shared with your friends. Up to 20 of them can watch it each night, Monday through Friday, as it's broadcast. Thank you for joining us. Join us tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new INFOWARS Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
You are watching the InfoWars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. And your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.